Morning, and this is Phil Dixon with another edition of This Day in African American Baseball History. This is the November 10th, 2025 edition. And once again, if you've never joined me and you're kind of wondering, well, okay, what is this guy doing? What I'm doing basically is I give you historic facts that relate to African American baseball players who may not be playing baseball necessarily because they played football, they boxed, they played basketball, but they did play baseball. That's the most important thing. So these are all around athletes. So I'm going to give you a little bit about them, something that was achieved on this date, which was November the 25th, through history. And then I give you some commentary on it, and then I'm out of here. So if you guys like this kind of information, if you first time joining me, you've never heard of me before, I'm an author, historian, been at this research for over 45 years, man. Look, in just 5 more years, I guess, it'll be 50 years. Not a lot of people can make that boast, but I'm still at it and still touring, still doing some wonderful things, still writing, have a number of books out there if you want to follow me. And guys, I just don't have books, I have award-winning books. My last book won a Best of Illinois book award. The one before that one, it won the Jackson County Historical Society Award. And then, of course, way back in 1992, I had a book that won the Casey Award. It's the best baseball book of the year. So I've been at it a while, and I'm just having a great time as always. So let's jump right in here, and we'll get this done, and we'll go from there, all right? So we're going to go to November 10th, 1923. Okay, so the Pittsburgh Courier, that's a African American newspaper, in case you don't know that, noted the following totals for Hilldale. Now, Hilldale was the Darby Daisies out of Darby, Pennsylvania, and they were a championship team. Of course, there was no World Series in 1923, but in 1924, Hilldale from the Eastern Color League would engage the Kansas City Monarchs from the Negro National League, and they would play the first modern day World Series. Of course, the Monarchs won that World Series. Then the next year, the Monarchs were champions in the Negro National League again, and Hilldale was the champions in the Eastern Color League once more. And they battled again in the World Series. And that year, Hilldale won the World Series. So those two teams, the Kansas City Monarchs, who were also champions in the Negro National League in 2023, had a 3-year run that was just simply incredible, both teams. But how good were these guys? And who should you know about if you're interested in these teams? So here's the total that the Pittsburgh Courier gave. All right. Now, these totals are going to be a little different than if you go online and you look up Hilldale, because what you'll find out is they're only taking statistics from the games that Hilldale played against other African American teams. However, any African American team that was worth its salt was going to get a lot of exhibition games played against white teams, town teams all along the Midwest if they're the Kansas City Monarchs, and along the Eastern Seaboard if they're Hilldale. So these totals are taken from their overall performance, all games. This is what you'll find interesting. So it says that Nip Winters, left-hander, outstanding pitcher, was 32-6 on the season, 32 wins. You know, talking about 30-game winners, I know growing up, I was able to see Denny McLain when he won 30 for Detroit, the last pitcher in the American League to win 30. And then, of course, I've written a book about Dizzy Dean and him winning 30 games in 1934. However, they didn't talk about these guys, but we're going to talk about them today. So here we go. Nip Winters, 32-6 on the season. How about this? He's not in the Hall of Fame. Good pitcher, though, really good pitcher. And then Biz Mackey, who is enshrined in Cooperstown, over in Cooperstown, New York. He batted .423 in 146 games. And then John Henry Lloyd, who was their shortstop. Now Mackey was the catcher, first baseman, but the shortstop was a guy named John Henry Lloyd, who has been in the Hall of Fame since maybe the 1970s. and outstanding shortstop. And he batted .418 in 107 games. And how about this? There's a guy named Otto Briggs. I talked about him in a prior broadcast just a few days ago. Otto Briggs ended up being working for the Philadelphia Tribune, another African American newspaper, and but he picked up 248 hits. How about that? That's a great season. 248 hits. Now I'd like to know a little bit more about that, wouldn't you? And how about this one? Frank Warfield stole 67 bases. Frank Warfield, another outstanding second baseman. So guys, this team was a bona fide champion, and they had some great players. Of those players I mentioned 5 players, but only 2 of them have been enshrined in Cooperstown, and some of them aren't even in their state baseball Hall of Fame. So just want to let you know that these guys are running big numbers. Now, once again, I caution you, if you go out and you look online for their statistics in 1923, which you can do, you can go and find that in any search engine, they're going to be different than what you see here because they do not include any games that were played against teams other than those teams that were in the league. But they played a lot of games, guys. You can see Biz Mackey participated in 146 games. So when you go out there, take a look and see how many games they have for Biz Mackey, all right? Feel free to post that when you follow me. Guys, I like interaction. All right, let's go to another one. November 10th, 1939, in California Winter League action, the Chicago American Giants pitcher tossed a 4-hitter and whiffed 8 in a win that put his team in first place. Now, what's interesting is that I'm going to have to go back and check that to see who actually did that. 1912. So that was probably the Chicago American Giants were out there. It could have been Joe Williams who was with them. It could have been Bill Lindsay. It could have been Pat Doherty. It could have been Frank Wickware. All of those guys were really good. So they were with the American Giants. I'll go back and I didn't put enough detail in that one. I'm just wondering why. So let's go to another one. Friday, November the 10th, 1939. Hopefully you guys are still with me. I'm going to get through this. And also, hey, I do want to say, if you come online, you're just picking me up and you stay for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I do appreciate that, your time. And go ahead and subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. Also, I want to tell you guys, now, if you're looking for a bunch of dancing girls, I don't have that. If you're looking for somebody who's going to do something super crazy and funny so you can get some laughs, I don't have that. But if you want straight, hard fact information from a baseball historian, this is where you want to be. All right, so let's go to November 10th, 1939. The American Football Statistical Bureau, which weekly compiles individual and team performances of the nation's 112 leading colleges, noted that UCLA's Jackie Robinson had the best running average amongst all running backs who had gained 250 yards or more. And Robinson netted 12 yards for each of his 21 times he carried the ball. You probably heard of Jackie Robinson. Most of you know that his number is retired, is a professional baseball player, number 42 all over the league. But man, this guy was quite the all-around athlete. You can see this is 1939. He's a tremendous football player out with UCLA. And so you can look that up a little bit more too. Jackie Robinson, wonderful athlete. All right, let's go to another one. November 10th, 1948. Bob Lemon's Major League All-Star. Now, I actually saw Bob Lemon because he was managing the Kansas City Royals when I was a kid, so I saw him quite a bit. But in 1948, Bob Lemon's Major League All-Stars versus Satchel Paige's Kansas City Royals exhibition game in Los Angeles at Wrigley Field is called off at the last minute by baseball commissioner A.B. Happy Chandler, who decided to bar such exhibitions after November 9th. It's interesting, these guys played these exhibition games for years, for years, going back to the turn of the century. They would go out to Los Angeles and they would play, and they would play all over the country, east and west. And yeah, just as you thought, a lot of the American National League players didn't do that well. So after Kennesaw Mountain Landis is gone, Happy Chandler becomes the commissioner, and they pass a rule: no exhibition games past November 9th. So guys, it depends on if you're in the World Series. If your team was in the World Series, now you got to try to get a game in, but you just can't get there and play the game. It's got to be promoted. So you're going to need a week and a half of promotion. And so basically they cancel a lot of these games. And if you went out to California, guys, you could play all the way through the winter and come back in January, February, and go straight to spring training and been pitching on the weekends, on Thanksgiving and Christmas. You could go out there and play. But the guys weren't making the kind of money they're making now, but they sure put those guys out of business, and they certainly didn't want them playing exhibition games unless they were sanctioned by the powers that be in the American National League, which meant that they were going to get a take of the money. So just interesting history. That's Bob Lemon and Satchel Paige. Man, that would have been a great game. Lemon was really good at that particular time. Actually, they were teammates on the Cleveland Indians, so they were just getting together to get another payday. And so really interesting that it didn't take place. Happy Chandler. Man, I can tell you a lot about Happy Chandler. I will tell you this, that I remember in the early 80s, someone telling me that they had gone through Happy Chandler's records, and they pulled out everything that was negative related to race. Now, this is information that happened in real time, and I was around as a historian, and this information got to me. Now, I don't know who pulled that information, but they went in and purged his collection of artifacts, and they're in some library in Kentucky, of things that were negative related to race that came from the commissioner's office in baseball. Guys, this is true stuff. You won't read this, but there are some historians around who were around at that time. They might remember that. All right, so let's go to one more. We go to one more. Now, on November the 3rd, I mentioned a guy named Bill Pierce, and Bill Pierce was out on the West Coast, and he was with the American Giants at that time, and he caught Bill Lindsay's game where Bill Lindsay had struck out 10 batters. Now, Bill Lindsay is from Lexington, Missouri, and I have relatives who are buried in the same cemetery where he is buried. And of course, it is a African-American cemetery. So let's go here. And this is what Pierce said. Now, Pierce is from Hanover, Indiana. He was a catcher, a first baseman, and he suited up for teams like the Lincoln Giants, the Chicago American Giants, the Detroit Stars, and Homestead Grays. And he had a lengthy career. And in a 1939 article, he was speaking to Cumberland Posey, the owner of the Homestead Grays, who had a nice little article he penned in the Pittsburgh Courier. And Pierce said that the best right-hand pitchers in baseball were Bill Lindsay and Frank Wickware. And I tend to agree with him. Bill Lindsay, to me, in my estimation, was the greatest teenage pitcher that ever lived. Bill Lindsay passed away in 1914 from tuberculosis. And I did talk to one of his hometown people who gave me a lot of detail on Bill Lindsay. And so Frank Wickware from Girard, Kansas, originally born in Girard, Kansas. He grew up in Coffeyville, Kansas. And I've presented in both of those areas, presented in Lexington too. So I've had a chance to talk about all these people. But Pierce also went on to say that these two pitchers, Lindsay and Wickware, were greater than Cannonball Dick Rennie, Cyclone Joe Williams, and Leroy Satchel Paige. Now, we know a lot about how good they were. So to be better than those guys, that means that these guys were simply amazing. And so that's what I want to leave you with today, is this history that's out here and needs to be talked about. And even like a guy named Bill Pierce. William Pierce is his real name. If you look up, say on Wikipedia, Hanover, Indiana, and you put in, say, looking for famous people, you can use AI, you can do whatever you want to, you will not see his name. Guys, this is the work that needs to be done. Recognition needs to be given to people who achieved major things but never got the recognition. Hanover has a college there. A lot of people have attended that college, and actually, they had the first black graduate, believe it or not, in 1951. This guy was born. I don't know. He Pierce might have been born there before the turn of the century. They didn't recognize him, but they did have a black graduate from the college in 1951. Man, that it took a long time for them to get some black people to graduate from that college. Now, there's a guy that you probably see him in movies and things like that named Woody Harrelson. And Woody Harrelson attended the college there in Hanover. So I don't know if he graduated. I'm going to check on that, but he definitely was there. But there's no mention of Bill Pierce, and that means we have work to do. All right. So I want to thank you for that. And let's see, we're getting a few comments on here. Somebody says, "Hey, Unc, what we on today?" Okay, well, and so we're talking about Denmark Vesey and Nat Turner. Well, actually, guys, this is probably not the best place to talk about those guys because even though I'm interested in history and politics and revolution and all of that, this is a baseball broadcast. And most people come here because they want baseball. So I try to stick to what I do best, which is talk about baseball. Now, I can't talk about history. I'm quite the historian and enjoy history, but baseball is what this site's all about. Maybe down in the future, maybe I'll start another site and put some more pictures on the wall because I can do that and have a site where I talk about some of those things. Yeah, Nat Turner, definitely know about them, and Denmark Vesey. Guys, feel free to look those names up. Those are great names in the saga of African American history. Okay, and somebody says that a young Morgan Freeman. No, but I tell you what, I hope I have as much success as he's had. Okay, and somebody said thank you for sharing your knowledge, and that's Darius Rex. Appreciate that, Darius. And said they said Woody Harrelson's father was a professional assassin. You know, I think I saw that somewhere. I don't know where I saw that. Yeah, but hey, he went to Hanover College, right? So check that out. Check that out. We can learn more about Woody Harrelson. So you guys are just full of information. Yeah, you're making me say, hey, go back and study yourself. But I certainly appreciate that and all that you are responding. If you like what we're doing here, guys, or you like baseball, just go ahead and hit that subscription button. I'm trying to actually I want to try to get to 1,000 subscribers by the New Year's Day. We're going to celebrate on New Year's Day. Maybe I'll give some books away. So maybe if I get 1,000 subscribers, I'll give 10 books away. One book away for every 100 subscribers. I have to figure that out. Got some good books, guys. If you really like baseball, you might want to check out my book, The Dizzy and Daffy Dean Barnstorming Tour, Race, Media, and America's National Pastime. It's a real page turner and came out right before the pandemic. And we had big plans to promote it during the pandemic year. Of course, we didn't know it was going to be a pandemic year, and that would have been 2020. But you know where everybody was in 2020. Believe me, you couldn't do a book tour that year. And so a lot of people missed that book, but people have been picking it up and they say, man, this is a very interesting book and it's a great read. It's an easy read. And guys, I'm not writing pamphlets. I'm writing thick books. Thick books. I think my last book was 420 pages on the 1910 Chicago Leland Giants. So going as deep as I can, but I thank you guys for joining. I'm going to come back a little later and do November 11th. And I'm going to do that edition. I had been busy yesterday, so it was just impossible. So I said, let me come early this morning and do this. As always, I try to get out of here by 20 minutes. I thank everyone. If you join me for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or if you stayed the whole broadcast, certainly appreciate that. If you're picking this up later, go ahead and hit that subscription button and come on back and we'll be talking baseball all the way through. So this is Phil Dixon Signing off. Phil S. Dixon is what I go by. Look me up, guys. I'm on quite a bit of social media doing some fabulous things. Thank you. You have a nice day.